Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, we have a guest on. Unfortunately, he is a Cubs fan after the series. This is Mike Defran, also a Seahawks fan, so his taste in sports teams aren't very good.
Very good. Lots of winning in my lineage.
Oh, I don't know about that. But so we're going to be recapping the Cubs series today. Very brutal series for the Padres. Not only do they get swept, but also Tatis goes down. And then in Wednesday's game, we have a collision, which looks like Tommy Pham might have broke his jaw. So very, very bad there. But Isaac, I'll let you start out, man. What are just your initial thoughts after this series?
Last kind of series you wanted to see. I'm not going to overreact at all. It's going to happen to every baseball team throughout the season. The Dodgers went on a really bad losing streak at one point. This is just a losing streak for us. But it was a 10-game road trip. This is the last of the 10. Bullpen was taxed after going four straight. I think it was 4 straight extras. So, nothing to panic about, but definitely a little concerning that the bats really aren't there. And that might be it, the fact that we don't have Grisham. And I mean, now the bats might even struggle even more with Kim. And, Tommy Pham was finally doing something for once in the season. And then, Tatis is going to be out. But overall, this series, it sucked to see. The starters weren't very good. You saw Paddock got rocked. Weathers did okay. Lamet did pretty good. But it was just an unfortunate series for the Padres. But, nothing to panic about. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think, again, speaking as a Cubs fan, it was a good series. Obviously, I hope that, you guys can get healthy. Obviously, I never root for injuries. So, sucked to see that collision and Tatis go down and all that. So, hoping for health for you guys. But just kind of what the opposite of what he said. I think the Cubs bats really came alive. I think their starting pitching was really good. We had Cole Stewart start his first start up from AAA. Thought he did really, really well yesterday. A couple of days ago. And I just was really pleased with what I saw from the Cubs, hitting, pitching. The bullpen was solid as always. And even though we had some guys banged up coming into the series, I thought guys stepped up and played big roles. Patrick Wisdom came out of nowhere and is just a stud. So really happy to see, but obviously hope for health for everybody going forward.
Yeah, you guys definitely got fueled by Patrick. Was it Patrick Wisdom and Javi Baez, of course. Baez went off.
Yeah, I didn't say a word about it. After Javi hit his home runs, I was quiet as a mouse. So.
Oh yeah, very quiet. But I mean, he hit some absolute bombs in some pivotal moments. So props to him. Yeah. He played really well. Mm-hmm. It was funny though. I know that Chase, who's not on today, sent us a tweet, and it was basically when you have these two guys pair up, and it was Tatis and Baez, and they're the two leading people in errors this year. And they said, what's going to happen. And it was I think it was like Tatis's first or second at bat where Baez has the throwing error where he skips it into the dirt. And then it's like, oh no. And then Tatis advances. And it's just like, there's going to be a hectic series for the shortstops. But overall, Baez played really well. The Cubs played really well as also. The one thing I kept saying from the Padres broadcast was, oh, look how great these two bullpens are. I think the Cubs bullpen outperformed them a little bit. I think on Tuesday's game was an example of the Cubs having a great bullpen outing, just because a lot of times especially this season, the Padres have been down by 1 run in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, doesn't really matter, and it doesn't seem to phase them. They've consistently came back against the bullpens, but the Cubs were able to hold them off in every game, and then they were able to take advantage of the Padres bullpen. So I think that overall that was the biggest difference. I think the Cubs definitely executed more, but just moving on to kind of like talk about these teams a little bit more. I think one thing I said that was a little bit off. I said that the Padres would have a ton of home runs this series, and they would move into the top half of the league. They were at 19th coming into this series, and they're still in 19th. Mike, your Cubs might have hit a few bombs here and there in this series, but it was kind of the opposite. So I'll start with you, though, Isaac. Talk about the Padres' power, and then Mike, you can get into the Cubs and all their home runs. But are you a little bit concerned about the lack of power that we've seen from the Padres over this whole course of the year? I know we're about a third of the way into the season, and they could definitely get hot. But are you any concerned that outside of Tatis, I think the leading guy on the team is Grisham with 6. So what are your thoughts in that department?
I'm not concerned yet. But it's definitely a little concerning considering last year. I know it wasn't exactly a long season, but in my opinion, a lot of the games that we won were just based off how many bombs we hit. We had a lot of guys hitting a ton of bombs, walk-offs. But there was a big display of power last year that really willed us to the second best record in baseball, I believe. So yeah, it's a little concerning right now. We're still winning a lot of ball games. So of course, when the power is finally displayed, it's going to be a really tough offense to stop. And when we finally start hitting the starting pitchers, my goodness, we cannot hit a starting pitcher to save our life in this road trip, really, it felt like. But not concerned yet. We still have a lot of guys that can hit for power. Fernando's still doing it. Manny is, when Manny gets hot, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Manny gets hot. It's going to be, really tough to stop them. Hosmer and Myers still need to get hot, so nothing to be concerned about yet. Still a very good lineup. Still a very powerful lineup to come.
Yeah, I was very pleased, obviously, with the home run ball. I think they said in our Cubs broadcast before today, all of our runs in this series came from home runs. We had two guys have 2 home runs in the first game. We had Contreras hit just an absolute missile yesterday. That went, out of the stadium pretty much. It felt really good to just get that power. KB got into it. Just having the guys with power hitting, obviously very good. Runners in scoring position also, or with runners on base even, getting those extra runs up there. So was very happy. The kid Patrick Wisdom, obviously glad to see his home runs that he showed. Very impressed with the home run pop, and hopefully we can continue that power later in the year, because I think that's what's going to separate us from some of these other NL teams.
Yeah, so let's just kind of look into the quick outlook of these teams. And Isaac, you start off with the Padres, and then Mike, you kind of let all of our listeners know what you think the Cubs are going to kind of look like for the rest of the year. And then obviously we're going to be playing you guys next week, so there's that as well. Yeah. But in terms of where the Padres are at now, Isaac, where do you feel? You feel like maybe it's going to be a little bit of a rough patch? Because that's how I feel. You have all these injuries. You're playing against a really good pitching staff in the Mets. What are you feeling right now? You feel like we might hit a little rough patch? And if that's the case, are you concerned about that? Because I know you said you're not very concerned about the lineup, but just where are you at right now in the Padres and being about a third into the year?
Unfortunately, where all these injuries are happening, it's a really tough spot for them to happen, considering really this part of the schedule is pretty tough. We have the Mets next. We have the Cubs after that again. And then I forgot who we have after that. Let me check real quick. We got then we have the Mets again, and then it eases up with the Rockies. So definitely these next 3 series are going to be pretty tough. Hopefully we get a couple guys back. I'm not concerned for the outlook of the whole season, but this could be a rough patch. But with baseball, anything could happen. We swept the Cardinals with half a AAA team basically. So
I appreciated that. I appreciated that very much.
So we don't know what's going to happen with this team. They're very, they know how to handle adversity very well, very hard-nosed, very tough team, and they can go out there and they can battle anytime. We just got to hope that health starts going our way here soon. But I think one thing that needs to be mentioned is the atrocious, especially considering we have what was supposed to be one of the best rotations in baseball, how atrocious some of the starts have been. And they're maybe not atrocious on the stat sheet, but just the length that they're going. Right now, we're bottom 5 in terms of starters in innings pitched, and we're number 1 or 2 with how many innings the bullpen has pitched. So in order for us to be able to maintain a good bullpen ERA and to start winning a ton of ball games in a row, this starting rotation really, really needs to start coming around here soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I think with the Cubs, we've seen kind of 2 different baseball teams so far this year. We saw the April Cubs, who were awful. They couldn't hit. I think their batting average at one point was like 195. It was awful. It just seemed like they really couldn't put the bat on the ball. Their starting pitching wasn't good at all either. I mean, Kendrick struggled. He had a blow-up start against the Braves that was just awful. Arrieta was shaky, all of those guys. And, the bullpen was fine. And then it seemed like in May, they just flipped the switch. They went 19-8 in May. Their bullpen came alive. Their bullpen was, in the month of May, the best in baseball. If not, between them or the Padres, the best in baseball. Their hitting started to get a lot better. KB really turned it on, especially Javi had some great games. Nico Horner before his injury was really, really good. And they were kind of down. I think at one point they were like third or fourth in the NL Central standings. Now we're above the Cardinals by a game, I believe. We're 32-23, if I'm not mistaken. So just really encouraging to see this hot streak keep going. Obviously, we've won our first 2 games in June, so it looks like it's in part at least continuing into our momentum. But I think this team's got a lot of talent, and when we get quality starts from our pitchers and our bullpen is as dominant as it's been, if we could just put bat on ball, I think we're going to win a lot of baseball games. So a lot of doubters early in the year. I was getting a little nervous, but they've seemed to really turn it around, and I hope that they can continue this going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sounds similar when you're talking about the streakiness of your batting, because definitely been the case with the Padres as well the last couple of years, where when they're hot, they are untouchable, but when they're slumping, like they're really slumping. So
yeah,
similar to the Padres in that department. But I think that's gonna do it for this segment. Thanks for coming on, Mike. Always cool to get a different insight, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of these, kind of where we bring another team's fan on, because this is pretty cool to do. But I think that's gonna do it for this segment.